Hi everybody, Jeff, your executive gardener here. It is third week in May and I hope you're having a good one. To all my friends in Texas, especially Houston, I am your executive gardener especially, but thanks for joining me. So I'm not holding a baseball bat in my hand, I'm actually holding a cucumber that I've grown, a 2-foot cucumber. You can see it's perfectly grown. I'll put the link to what this cucumber is. I think it's an Asian hybrid cucumber, but this is the best year I've ever had planting cucumbers. So I'm going to show you what I've done to guarantee that I have a better cucumber batch than I did the year before. And in the past years, I was plagued by powdery mildew and all kinds of issues with cucumbers. And I'll talk about again what I did to get good cucumbers. So as you know, you can grow many different cucumber varieties. I grew 2 different cucumber varieties. So I grew this big Asian hybrid cucumber, and I've also grown the pickling cucumbers, okay? The Boston pickling variety. And I mean, look at the difference between these two, okay? Much different, but I've had a huge harvest of these so far, and I'm getting more of these to grow and make dill pickles with. But I've already given a bunch of these baseball bats away to people, and I'll show you my plant that's producing these. But in the meantime, just so you know, this is a 2.5 gallon bucket filled with 1.5 and 2-foot cucumbers, okay? And there's more than I can grow, okay? Excuse me. I'm growing more than I can eat is what I meant to say. So if any of my Houston friends want some, I can certainly get these to you. But my wife's going to make a great cucumber salad here in a little bit, and we're going to have a blast. But let me get to it. Let me show you how you can grow great cucumber plants in your own backyard. Okay, here we are back, and let me talk about how first of all, to start off with, to grow great cucumbers, you got to get great seeds. So I'm gonna put a link at the bottom to the type of cucumbers that I'm growing. I find them very resistant to powdery mildew, to blight, and some of the other things that you get in hot, humid, rainy environments like Texas. So I'll put those down there. So the first thing to do is certainly find a good place to plant. Make sure you plant in an area that gets a lot of direct sunlight, 6 to 8 hours of sunlight a day. In addition, cucumbers take a lot of water. I'm talking about like 1 gallon to 2 gallons a day. Each plant, if you are living in an area with 90+ degree heat, okay? And they're also heavy feeders, especially of nitrogen. So let me tell you what I do. So these are the ingredients that I use. You saw my results. You can try it if you'd like. So to start off with, I dig a hole, and I put the seedling that I grew from seed into the hole. And at the bottom of the hole, I mix up some good quality potting mix in addition to worm castings. So I don't need to show you worm castings, but if you're not using worm castings, I would definitely get some online, and it's even better if you do your own. So worm castings are the first thing I use. The second thing I use, starting from the left to the right there, is bone and blood meal from High Yield. So it's an organic bag there, and it's a 6-7-0 formula. So the bone meal's in there for the phosphorus, which is 7. The nitrogen is the blood meal, which is in at 6, and there's no potassium in that. So it's a brand called High Yield. You can usually get that at the store. That's a 3-pound bag that was $7. And then to the right is muriate of potash, and that is 0060, I believe, and that's for potassium. So we talked about the N, the P, the bone and blood meal, and the K is the potassium right there. Again, that bag was $7 for a 3-pound bag. And what that does, of course, is the potassium really strengthens the plant, gives strength to the stalk and the plant in general, and helps it protect itself from diseases that the plant may get. So overall health of a plant is the potassium part of it. To the right there, you've heard me talking about it, is the most overlooked nutrient, I think, in gardening, which is Epsom salt, okay? So the magnesium sulfate, very important for gardeners, and I put a little bit of that, the potash, and the bone and blood meal in there, and I mix it up with the worm castings at the bottom, okay? And then if I keep going over, cucumbers are big feeders of nitrogen, so I add a little bit more organic blood meal. That's the green bag there. So that gives it an extra boost of nitrogen, and that works out really well. And then last but not least, I do get this little container down here. It's called Jack's Classic Tomato Feed. It's a formula of 12, 15, 30, okay? And I water my plants every 10 to 14 days, 1 tablespoon per gallon of water, and the plants love it. Again, cucumbers are heavy feeders, so they're going to need a lot of nutrients on an ongoing basis, especially if you're growing your plants in a container. They will lose the nutrients relatively quick. So even though it says tomato feed, it can be used on peppers, squash, zucchini, tomatoes, peppers, and cucumbers. So it's very good. And I don't endorse any of these products. It's just what works for me. And I think it's called Jack's Classic Tomato Feed. I think it's jrpeters.com, and that's how that works. One more thing that I wanted to talk about, and I've talked about this on a previous video, but if you live in a hot, humid environment, again, that gets a lot of rain. I've had a lot of issues with blight and powdery mildew on my cucumber plants. I've talked about this brand before. Let me focus out here real quick. It's called Serenade Garden Disease Concentrate. It's fungicide that attacks harmful garden diseases, okay? Like powdery mildew, blight. And it says it can be used with organic gardening. So I would definitely recommend you do this. I usually spray my plants every 10 to 14 days with this. And this has helped with the powdery mildew. Now, when I go over to my plant, you're going to notice I'm getting a little bit of powdery mildew. It's not as bad as it looks because this morning I did spray the Serenade on it. And some of what you see on the leaves is the white remains or the water spots from the Serenade. So it's not all powdery mildew. But let me get over to my plant. I'll show you. You saw some early results of my 1.5, 2 foot cucumbers. And I'll show you the plant and what's going on with it and some additional growth that I have on the plant. So as I talked about, number one, you need to plant in a good spot that gets 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight a day. This is one. It's up against my fence. If you remember, what I did is I took my grapes down, and I'm using the trellis along the back there. There's posts and the wire, as you'll see there, to be a trellis for these cucumber plants. These cucumbers are very heavy based on the size that I showed you before. In addition, I've never planted anything back along this back side of the fence, and I've had, as you'll see, wood chips here. Year after year after year, we refill them every year, and they break down and they make really rich soil. So I think that's part of why we're doing so well, in addition to the ingredients that I showed you. So as you'll see here, these leaves aren't as bad as they look. They look a little bit white, but that's a lot. Again, I sprayed it with the Serenade this morning. And we're actually supposed to get a rain later today, so most of that will wash off a little bit later, but it helps protect the plant from powdery mildew. Normally the leaves look like this, as you can see, and these don't have any powdery mildew. But let's get into it. So this is the plant. Again, I'll put the link to these seeds down below, but I've taken a ton of cucumbers off, and you'll see the great thing about this, and there's one right there, okay, so you can see they're hanging from that strong wire trellis, and this one is long and thin, and it appears to be probably about 19 inches long, and they're kind of all over the place in this plant. So as you'll see there's 2 more that are hanging. You've got one in there, and there's one on the ground there. There's a few back there that are hanging. Actually, there's one in the back. So it looks like I do have about 8 more that are hanging on this plant, and there's a bunch of others that are starting to pop up right now and are starting to grow. So As most of you know, I don't need to tell you, cucumbers have male and female flowers, and I don't do any hand pollination. This year in Houston we've had a good amount of bees, so the bees have successfully done their job and have pollinated my plants very well. But again, that's all you have to do, folks. Get the right seed, 6 to 8 hours of sunlight a day, plant it in a good place that's got rich organic soil, use the formula that I talked about prior, the 4 or 5 ingredients, give it a shot every 10 to 14 days with that Jack's booster for tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, etc. And again, hit it with that Serenade organic spray every 10 to 14 days. That'll help keep some of the diseases at bay. I actually just found the little one. So you see that's how the little cucumbers start. They look like that. And the funny thing about cucumbers is, man, they go from like this size to like 2 feet in like a week. So you got to check them often. There's another baby cucumber, as you can see. It's just starting there. But you got to check them very often, because if you don't, if they overgrow, they'll become yellow, they become bitter, and they're just no good. I prefer to pick my cucumbers when they're very green and just prior to full maturity, so a little bit sweeter. This variety also is burpless, I believe, so it doesn't cause some of the gas and digestive issues that a lot of cucumber plants get. In addition, as I talked about, I'm also growing some pickling cucumbers, but it's the same formula for them, whether it's a big Asian cucumber plant like this or pickling, it's all the same. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed that. I've had a killer year so far with cucumbers. As you know, with cucumbers, they do like a warm environment. So if you live in it, your temperatures pretty much need to be 75 to 90, 95 degrees. There can be a lot of issues when it gets really, really hot and keep that keep the plant from producing fruit. But in general, 75 to 95 degrees, I think you're probably in pretty good shape throughout the summer. So it gives you plenty of time if you haven't planted your cucumbers, especially in some of the central and northern parts of the country. That is it. Hope you've enjoyed this. Have a great cucumber harvest. Like I said, my wife is making a delicious cucumber salad, and we should enjoy that for a week or two. But as it looks with this one plant, think about 2 little seeds started all of these cucumber vegetables for me. And you want to talk about ROI, cucumber seed is 1 cent, and we've got cucumbers that would probably cost a lot in the grocery store, but it's also healthy, it's organic, and we grow it ourselves. We know what's in it. So hope everybody's having a great May. Until next time, this is Jeff, your executive gardener, signing out. Bye.